Open your ears and lube up your butthole. It's time for the What Do We Call It podcast. Now, here's your host. It's Jmann. Welcome to the What Do We Call It podcast. I'm Jmann.
And I'm number one fan, Tim.
In our last episode, Jmann talked about being pulled over by a state trooper on 35E. He had filed a formal complaint online about her roadside candor and behind-the-wheel acumen. Now, let's get the rest of the story.
Here's the update to that traffic stop I was on. So, the lieutenant that said he was going to call me, he called me.
Okay.
And he said he sat down with the female trooper that pulled me over, and he discussed with her my concerns. First and foremost, with her saying that I was going, quote, too fast, but not telling me the miles an hour that I was going. And her logic was that she doesn't make it a habit of telling people how fast over the limit they were going if she's giving warnings, because they think, well, if I'm going 15 over, I can get away with 10, or if I'm going 20 over, maybe I can get away with 15. She's afraid it's going to encourage people to just speed a little bit less.
Yeah, I can agree with that logic a little bit. I
And
got a warning because I was doing 15 over, so I can get away with 10 for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
Well, my rebuttal was, how are you going to make an impact to people of how wrong they were without using a specific number? An idea they can quantify the amount of law breaking they were doing. He's like, no, I agree with you 100%. And that's what I told her.
But on the other hand, you know, typically if you're getting pulled over, you know you're speeding.
Well, not always.
I mean, I'm watching my speedometer. I really am. I'm looking at my speedometer at least every couple of minutes, and I got a pretty steady foot with all the miles I've driven.
Oh, good for you.
So I know how fast I'm going. You know, especially if I'm looking like, oh, there's a cop. I look down at my speed right then and there, just so I know if I'm going to get pulled over or not.
Usually they will give you 5 miles an hour of leeway. Up to 10, it depends on the officer themselves.
And I do think they might take traffic flow into consideration, too. Because I've been on roads where cops are sitting there, but everyone's doing, 65 and a 55, and the cop's not doing it. Because that's just the general flow of traffic.
Well, it's unfortunate she doesn't feel the same way. Because I was going with the flow of traffic at the time.
Well, yeah, like you said, it depends on the officer, too. Can't take that away from it.
Well, they were also, doubled up in the span of 2 city blocks, going each direction, like they had nothing better to do. No, they fucking spread out and stop making it so obvious that you're only paying attention to
I think
speeders.
they wanted it to be obvious, though.
No.
Hiding in plain sight? No.
If you want it to be obvious, then you don't want stops.
Well, you got to pull someone over every once in a while, make it look like they're actually doing something. We've had this discussion.
Right, and that is what I was told back when I worked for the Sheriff's Department way back when. However, there was the day that we busted out the LiDAR gun and just stood there and then radioed down to a guy further down, and I'm like thinking to myself, this is such a colossal fucking waste of time. We are out on 169 in the middle of nowhere. I don't give a shit how fast they're going. It's 10 in the morning. No one's around.
Yeah, but the speed limit is the speed limit. The rules are in place for a reason.
You got to be kidding me.
They could stand to bump all the 55s up to 70 on the interstates.
No argument there. It's like, well, geez, there's nobody really in the bank, and I need money, so it should be okay to rob the bank, right?
It's
like you're saying, there's no cars around. I'm out in the middle of nowhere. I should be allowed to speed.
Because it's not going to affect anybody. You're not hurting anything. You're just going about your business.
Until somebody pulls out in front of you because they thought you were only doing 55 and you smash into them at 70 and kill them.
Unlikely.
Because that's what happened to Mrs. Number One Fan.
Well, you got to be a judge of speed and depth perception there, and sometimes you just say, I'm going to wait.
Okay, well, it is a slightly different story with her because the person ran the stop sign in front of her.
Say what?
Yeah, nice false equivalency. Talk about burying the lead. Well, you could fuck around and cause an accident. Oh, by the way, that person ran a stop sign and caused an accident. Yeah, the most important fucking detail after the fact.
Yes, but still, it's supportive of my argument a little bit.
Yeah, in the same way that if I go running around like Porky Pig, naked from the waist down, stops me from shitting my pants, well, technically I'm not wrong, am I?
Not even technically. You have no pants on.
Yeah.
Hadouken!
The second part of my complaint was how she kind of jerkedly pulled forward, stopped, and then pulled out, which caused me to swerve.
Mm-hmm.
He did see that on camera.
Oh, good.
And he discussed with her how she may have wanted to make a stop, but they need to be more mindful of public safety at all times because no amount of stopping speeders is going to make up for it if you cause a crash, which then especially turns into a chain reaction. That level of traffic and the number of people not paying close enough attention these days, it's pretty easy to register a 3 to 5 car pileup.
Oh, yes, it is. Yes. We almost had that situation at my work today.
Oh, do tell.
Well, we're on the road striping. Okay?
Uh-huh.
We're striping southbound on the road. We're doing the white line so people can pass, in the passing zones. But this guy decided, nope, I'm too important. My car is too nice. So he decided to pass when there were cars coming, but realized he couldn't get in front of me. So he went into the shoulder on the other side for the northbound traffic and drove. So I'm going southbound.
Mm-hmm.
Cars are going northbound, and he's going southbound on their shoulder.
Wow.
And the dipshit drove on the only wet paint we had in that area.
Oh.
Because we were just touching up turn lane lines and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he drove right over it and tracked the paint. And
Of
it's just
course,
like
no
now,
cops around.
No cops around. So, of course, this could have caused a chain reaction like you're saying. If one person decided, I need to get in this turn lane and turned to get in the turn lane he was in, boom, he's going to hit that. They're going to go over and hit the cars that are next to them. Or they're going to go into the frickin' trees and through the trees and into the house that's right there. Or they could have come and hit us too. Mm-hmm. That's only a $500,000 truck. So, yeah, you need to be mindful.
That being said, I thanked him for taking the time to get back to me. I once again reiterated the point to him that I clearly had no intention of speeding that day. And he's like, no, I believe you. Your record, you're right. Your record reflects that you are a very safe and obviously mindful driver because I hadn't been stopped in Jesus Christ, 12 years. So I feel vindicated because he admitted that I should not have had to swerve because of the way she pulled out. And frankly,
that she was incorrect to not give you a... Well, no, she didn't. He didn't say she had to give you a speed.
He said that she should probably make it a practice of doing so.
Okay, vindicated. Yeah.
And then, and here's the second part of this episode, I said, well, I've got you on the line. If you have 2 minutes, I would love to pick your brain about a law that kicks in on August 1st. He's like, go ahead, man. Could not have been fucking cooler.
I am here to serve you.
No, he was. He was all about discussing this with me because how often does the public really get to have conversations about stuff coming up with the laws with the cops unless you just happen to bump into them when they're getting coffee or something?
I bumped into some sheriff deputies at a boat launch one time because they weren't sure, if they could give citations to people who didn't have a boat trailer but were parked in the boat spots.
Yeah.
And they didn't seem to know. The one had his laptop up. The other two was standing next to his car because there was 3 of them there. And they're just we're trying to see if there's some kind of statute or something like that or that we can give them a citation for. And so far, we're not finding anything. I was like, do it! Because I have a boat and a trailer, and there's nowhere for me to fucking park because of these guys.
Yeah, it doesn't really serve the public
I guess
interest.
I'm just trying to get it. They don't always know.
Oh, there's a lot of cops that don't know a lot of shit, and they get really pissed off if, in the midst of stopping you, and I've been waiting years to do this, but well, officer, you're saying that that's a crime, and I'm telling you I know for a fact that it's not, so why don't you go ahead and cite for me the specific statute number that would indicate for me what I'm doing wrong so I can look it up to fact check what you're saying. That would piss them off. Here's what you need to keep in mind. Criminal statute numbers start with 609. Traffic statute numbers start with 169 or 172.
Okay.
So if you really want to be a dick, you just say, what statute number is that? Is that going to be 169 or 172 chapter? I'm just curious because, I happened to study the statutes when I went to school to be a cop.
Or 609.
Well, no, because 609 would be
Throw 'em
more
off.
criminal act. No.
How are they going to know?
Well, you could try that to fuck with them.
Not to fuck with them, to test if they actually know what the hell they're doing.
Okay, so get to the thing that the cop that I asked him about the law.
Yeah, okay.
August 1st, a new law will go into effect in this state. It's actually an update of a previous law, he told me.
Yeah.
Drivers that are going too slow in the left lane can and will be stopped and ticketed for obstructing the flow of traffic.
Yep.
Yeah, so golf clap.
Yeah.
Here's where it got hairy and I questioned him. I said, I read the statute and it lacked clarity because it stated that you can no longer pass traffic in the left lane by going above the speed limit. In the past, I was told on the radio by Roski himself, Roski being one of the most senior members of the state patrol.
The one that calls in the 93X, right?
Well, he used to years ago. This is like 3 or 4 troopers ago.
Oh, okay.
He's up there. Stated you can go up to 10 miles an hour to overtake another vehicle, and then as soon as you get in front of them, you can drop back to the speed limit and you'll be fine.
I remember reading that when I was taking my driver's ed, yes.
So the way that I read the law when I saw it, and it was on one of the local news sites. I believe it was on KSTP. I went, what the fuck? So it said you couldn't do that. And it also talked about how, they do not want drivers to travel in the left lane anymore. It's supposed to be strictly for passing.
Yeah, that's never going to happen. Did it say specifically you could not exceed the speed limit to pass on the left lane? Or did it just lack to say you couldn't?
No, it said you couldn't.
It said you couldn't? Okay.
And that's why I was so fucking flummoxed.
I'm sure you've seen it. The way they write some laws, like I've been coming into with this ATV stuff I'm getting into with my kids, it doesn't state everything you can or can't do. So it's like a lot of times it just states what your actual restrictions are. Like it has to be 12 to 17 years old. It has to be on public land with an adult present. With a safety certification. But it doesn't say they're restricted to an engine size. But if you look at the 10 to 11-year-old, it says engine restriction, 90cc or less, or 110cc straddle-style seating. It's like, okay, so my question originally was, 12 to 17, are they stuck to 90cc? Because you've seen Pubert. He's taller than me. He can't fit on a 90cc. So just getting back to the way they write the laws, sometimes not very clear.
And this was one of them. And he stated, no, I get what you're saying right there about that. And I'm like, well, here's the thing. It says that you're supposed to use the left lane just for passing. What about if you are traveling and there's a ton of traffic and there's only 2 lanes? People are just going to not use the left lane? He's like, no, you're completely correct. I agree with you fully. And here's something to keep in mind. Little nugget of information for you. That portion about not driving in the left lane was added by a lawmaker that wanted it in, not by us. We don't support that. Because like you said, if there's traffic, you're going to use both lanes.
A smart person would, yes.
And frequently, when there are upcoming on-ramps, I will get into the left lane anyway to allow for more space for all the traffic merging onto the road I'm traveling.
Move over so they have room, yeah.
So he said, the way that's written is goofy, and really, with the arguments you made, plus others that can be said for driving in the left lane, I would think you'd be hard-pressed to get pulled over and ticketed for that because it's a nearly unenforceable law. Especially he's like, think about bumper-to-bumper traffic in rush hour. Everybody's going to use both available lanes. He's like,
all available lanes, yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, the portion about not speeding is actually about when there's only 2 lanes, 1 in each direction, and you have to cross over the line in the other lane. They're trying to discourage people from doing those overtaking passes on county roads. But still, one of those things you have to do if the driver's going too slow.
The government I work for, we count on that so people aren't behind us driving on the wet paint. We want them to pass us when it's safe to pass. So,
yeah.
Granted, we're doing 9 miles an hour, so it's not too hard.
Yeah, it's just an update of a law. He did say that people that are going so slow that they're basically trying to police the other drivers. They're trying to go just right at the speed limit in the left lane and holding up traffic. Those are the types of people they're going to be looking for with that law to ticket.
I figured that's what it was for. And if I'm in the far left lane, I'm usually doing the flow of traffic, if not a little bit faster. So a couple miles an hour.
But in addition to that, people that are just overall going too damn slow, they're going to ticket them.
Yeah, minimum of 40. If you're doing 35, 40 miles an hour and everyone else is doing 55, you're a hazard.
So these old people that drive like an old lady screws, slow and awkward, they're just going to be putting along and, well, sorry, you rack up enough fucking tickets for that shit, they'll yank your license.
Yeah, any multiple tickets. Except for like parking tickets, I imagine. Or would they? Would they yank your license if you had a bunch of parking tickets?
A bunch of unpaid ones and say like a bench warrant for failure to...
Unpaid or paid and unpaid? Like
unpaid.
Okay. I've only had 2 parking tickets my whole life, so...
I had one where I was parked in front of my friend's house on a dead-end cul-de-sac. It's like a long cul-de-sac. Mm-hmm. And I was parked on the wrong side of the road in front of his house. It was the only spot available. And that was the only way I could manage to comfortably park in between the cars there. 2 a.m, they ticketed me. Most of the other party goers had gone home. So it's just because they knew there was a party there. Yeah.
Or it's the 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. thing that they have. There's no parking on any of these streets.
No, it on the ticket it said facing wrong direction.
We do that all the time in my cul-de-sac.
Well, it's just because the cop was bored as shit.
Probably.
That's the problem with these laws that are very vague.
Well, it's actually great because my neighbor across the street, his son actually is a sheriff deputy. So he knows we all do it.
Well, yeah, you got to be a real chicken shit to just leave that on a parked car. So you came to a house, you saw a bunch of cars, you realized there was a party, and you didn't knock on the door to check for noise or underage drinking. You just ticketed me and then left. Grow a fucking spine.
Well, what about the times I parked in front of my own house when I lived with my parents? Twice, I got a ticket for parking because they had the 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. parking ban on any city street. Well, you'd think when they'd look up the address of the car, with like the license plate and registration and all that, can they do that?
They don't. Yeah, they can.
Yeah. You'd think they'd look at the address and parked and look. It's like, well, maybe it's got car problems or something. I'll let it slide.
They don't even have to look at your goddamn license plate. They can fucking walk up and check the VIN right there in the dash to see if it matches the plate. And right there, like, oh, okay, yeah, here's 2 points of identification that prove that this car belongs to this address. I'm just fundraising because I'm being a nitpicky bitch.
I went in and argued with the court secretary person, whatever the fuck they were. And I got it reduced from a $20 fine to a $5 fine.
I would have said it should be a $no fine and get a fucking hobby.
That's what I tried telling him. I was parked in front of my own house. I lied about the car issues, but he's like, no, well, I'll just bring it down to $5. How's that?
Yeah, I should have fought my parking ticket.
Everyone told me, all my friends told me, oh, the cops in the neighboring city, not naming names, they're the biggest jackasses we ever met. So, well, if the city I lived in, like, giving me tickets for parking in front of my own house and not eliminating the fine, fuck that. They were the dicks.
Interact with the show on Twitter at What Do We Call It. That is at What Do We Call It. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/group/What Do We Call It podcast show. For the What Do We Call It podcast, I'm Jmann.
And I'm number one fan Tim.
And that's the end.